গ্যাসের দাম বাড়লো বলে দাদার পরে রাগ করো? একলা শুধুই দাদাই নয়, দিদিও যে পায় ভাগ তারও। প্রতি সিলিন্ডারের পণে 300 প্রায় আমজনতার টাকাগুলো দিদির কাছেও যায়। পরের কবিতা বেকার ভাতা। খবর কি রে, এত রাতে খাতা কলম নিয়ে ফর্দ করছি, করবো কি যে টাকাগুলো দিয়ে? আমি শুধুই কিসের টাকা, কোথায় পেলে, পরিমাণ বা কত? এই ধরো তা মোটামুটি 1000 মতো। ওরে বাবা, বলিস কি রে, অনেক টাকা সে তো। ফর্দে তবে কী লিখলি সেটা আগে বলতো। 1 নম্বর ধরো তাহলে মোবাইল রিচার্জ করা, 28 দিনে কম করে সে তো 100 ভরা। 2 নম্বরে ধর তাহলে চা, সিগারেট, বিড়ি, তার জন্য কম করেই আমি 1000 টাকা ধরে। তার উপরে 200 টাকা থাকছে আমার হাতে, সেটা দিয়ে করবো কি যে ভাবছি কদিন ধরে। ভেবে ভেবে কুল কিনারা পাচ্ছি না তো তার, বুদ্ধি একটা দে না রে ভাই, 200 খরচা। পরের কবিতা বাজার। বাবাকে আজ আনতে বললাম বাজার থেকে শিম, মনের ভুলে আনলো কিনে মস্ত একটা ডিম। বললো এটা ফ্রি পেয়েছি, নেই যে তার দাম, এটা ঘরে থাকলে নাকি মিটবে ঘরের কাম। সকাল সন্ধে ডিমের পরে দিচ্ছি কেমন তা, ডিম ফুটে আজ বেরিয়েছে লম্বা 2 পা। লম্বা পায়ে ডিমটি আবার ঘরের কাজ করে, সপ্তাহ শেষে ডিমের থেকে বেরিয়ে 2টি হাত, কুপি জ্বালায় দিনের শেষে যখন নামের হাত। উঠোন ঝাড়ে, বাসন মাজে, করে অনেক কাম, কিন্তু সবাই রেগে বলে এবার একটু থাম। গল্পের নাম সত্যি কথা। আমাদের পাড়ায় একটি সম্ভ্রান্ত বাড়িতে কাজ করতেন দিলীপ বলে একটি যুবক। সেই বাড়িতে থেকেই সব কাজকর্ম করতেন। শুধু কাজই নয়, সে সারাদিন বাড়িটা দেখাশোনাও করে রাখতেন কেয়ারটেকারের মতো। অর্থাৎ তিনি ছিলেন বাড়ির সর্বেসর্বা। জুতো সেলাই থেকে চণ্ডীপাঠ সব কাজে তিনি করতেন, কারণ বাড়ির মালিক তমাল এবং তমালের বউ দুজনেই কাজ করতেন অফিসে। রোজই অফিস থেকে ফিরে এসে রিল্যাক্স করার জন্য চায়ের বদলে একটু হুইস্কি খেতেন তমাল। আর রোজই খেতে গিয়ে দেখতেন হুইস্কির বোতলে জল মেশানো। আসলে দিলীপ তমালের হুইস্কির বোতল থেকে একটু করে খেয়ে তাতে জল মিশিয়ে রাখত। হুইস্কির বোতলে জল মেশানো বুঝতে পারলেও এই কাজটা কে করেছে ধরতে পারতো না তমাল। একদিন সন্ধেবেলা অফিস থেকে ফিরে বউয়ের পাশে বসে হুইস্কি খেতে লাগলো, আর দিলীপ রান্নাঘরে সন্ধ্যের জলখাবার বানাচ্ছিল। সেদিকে তমাল দেখলো হুইস্কির বোতলে প্রায় পুরোটাই জল। তখন তমাল রেগে গিয়ে চিৎকার করে দিলীপকে ডাকতে লাগলো আর বলল, তুই জানিস দিলীপ কি আমার এই হুইস্কির বোতল থেকে হুইস্কি খেয়ে জল মিশিয়ে রাখে? দিলীপ কোনো উত্তর দিল না। আরেকবার তমাল দিলীপ বলে ডাকলো, কিন্তু যখন দিলীপ তমালের কথার কোনো উত্তর দিল না, তখন তমাল এলো রান্নাঘরে দিলীপের কাছে আর বলল, তোকে যে জিজ্ঞেস করেছি আমার হুইস্কির বোতলে কে জল মেশায়, তুই কেন কোনো উত্তর দিচ্ছি না? তাই শুনে দিলীপ তমালকে বলল, রান্নাঘর থেকে শুধুমাত্র নামটাই শোনা যায়, আর কিছু শোনা যায় না। তমাল বলল, যা, তাই আবার হয় নাকি? দিলীপ তমালকে বলল, অমনি প্রমাণ করে দেব কি করে? তাহলে প্রমাণ করি। এই বলে দিলীপ গিয়ে বসলো তমালের বউয়ের পাশে আর চিৎকার করে ডাকতে লাগলো, তমালদা, ও তমালদা, আপনি পাশের বাড়ির বৌদিকে নিয়ে গাড়ি করে কালকে কোথায় গিয়েছিলেন? আপনার মাইনের অর্ধেক টাকা আপনি কি করেন? এই শুনে তমাল রান্নাঘর থেকে এসে দিলীপকে বলল, হ্যাঁ রে দিলীপ, তুই ঠিকই বলেছিস, রান্নাঘর থেকে শুধুমাত্র নামটাই শোনা যায়, আর কিছু না। এই গল্প থেকে আমরা শিখলাম সব মানুষেরই দোষ গুণ সবই থাকে। একজনকে শুধুমাত্র তার দোষ দিয়ে বিচার না করে তার গুণটাও দেখা দরকার।
Exploration of the universe at large only began in 1920s, because before that time nobody knew there was a universe at large. The accepted picture of cosmology was that the Milky Way system was a universe, and that although individual stars might be born and die, the general pattern of the Milky Way was eternal and unchanging. There has been dissenters from this view as far back as 1755. Immanuel Kant had suggested that some of the fuzzy blobs of light known as island universes like the Milky Way, but very few people took this idea seriously until well into the 20th century. The first step towards an understanding of the relationship between the Milky Way and the universe at large came when the Milky Way itself was mapped out in some detail for first time. At the end of the second decade of the 20th century, the mapper was Harlow Shapley, a young researcher at Mount Wilson Observatory in California, where he had access to what was then the best astronomical telescope in the world, a 60-inch diameter reflector. Using this instrument, Shapley was able to analyze the light from Cepheid variables across the Milky Way and thereby determine their distances. The actual numbers he came up with were slightly too big, because he had not allowed for the way in which dust in space dims the light from distant stars. But it was Shapley who showed, in a series of papers published in 1918 and 1919, that the Sun and solar systems sit far out from the center of the Milky Way and do not occupy a special place even in our own island universe. Because he had overestimated the size of Milky Way, Shapley thought that the Magellanic Clouds were relatively small systems within the Milky Way, not independent star systems. This encouraged him to think that all the starry nebulae were satellite systems, glorified star clusters in orbit round the Milky Way. But other astronomers disagreed, as more of these nebulae were discovered and studied using new telescopes like the 60-inch, and as many of them were seen to have a flattened disc-shaped appearance with spiral structure. The argument that they must be systems like the Milky Way at very large distances gained strength. In 1920, this led to a formal debate organized by the US National Academy of Sciences in Washington between Shapley arguing the case that nebulae were satellites of the Milky Way and Herbert and Heber Curtis of the Lick Observatory, who argued that the spiral nebulae were each major star systems broadly similar to our Milky Way. The debate was inconclusive, but it marked a turning point in cosmology. The moment when the data of galaxies beyond the Milky Way become respectable. Within 10 years, the case argued by Curtis would be proved with the aid of the latest of the great telescopes on Mount Wilson, the 100-inch reflector. The proof came from work by Edwin Hubble, who found that the new telescope was just powerful enough for him to be able to pick out Cepheid variables in some of the nearer nebulae, what we would now call galaxies. In order to measure the brightening and dimming of the Cepheid, of course, you need a series of photographs over a period of time, and in order to obtain even one photograph of the required quality, Hubble had to spend hours keeping the target locked in the sights of telescope while the photographic plate was exposed. It took almost 2 years, 1923 and 24, for Hubble to obtain 50 decent photographs of one particular fuzzy blob of light in the sky, now known to be an irregular galaxy, but the effort was worth it. Global warming. Global warming is a general increase in average temperature around the world. This increase has been between zero point 0.3 degrees C and zero point 0.8 degrees C over the last 100 years. Most scientists now think that global warming is caused by human activities, which have resulted in an increase in Earth's natural greenhouse effect. Humans have added carbon dioxide gas to the air by burning coal, oil, and gas at an increasing rate in the demand for electricity and car travel. The greenhouse effect is a way that certain gases in the air, notably carbon dioxide, trap some of the sun's warmth, like the panes of the glass in the walls and roof of a greenhouse. When heat from the sun reaches the earth, some of it penetrates the atmosphere and reaches the ground. Much of this heat is then reflected back into space. Certain gases in the air trap heat reflected from the ground. In the past, this natural greenhouse effect has kept the Earth comfortably warm. The gases pumped into the air by the burning of coal and oil in factories and cars, for example, have trapped much more heat. Scientists believe that this is causing global worldwide warming of the climate, which could have devastating effects in years to come. The lush vegetation of the world's rainforests absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When the rainforest is cut down and burned, not only does it stop absorbing, but the burning releases even more carbon dioxide to add to global warming. Birth and Parentage, Chapter 1, from M.K. Gandhi, an autobiography, the story of my experiments with truth. The Gandhis belonged to the Baniya caste and seem to have been originally grocers, but for 3 generations from my grandfather, they have been prime ministers in several Kathiawar states. Uttam Chand Gandhi, alias Ota Gandhi, my grandfather, must have been a man of principle. State intrigues compelled him to leave Porbandar, where he was Diwan, and to seek refuge in Junagadh. There he saluted the Nawab with the left hand. Someone, touching the apparent discourtesy, asked for an explanation, which was given thus: the right hand is already pledged to Porbandar. Ota Gandhi married a second time. Having lost his first wife, he had 4 sons by his first wife and 2 by his second wife. I do not think that in my childhood I ever felt anew that these sons of Ota Gandhi were not all of the same mother. The fifth of these 6 brothers were Karam Chand Gandhi, alias Kaba Gandhi, and the sixth was Tulsidas Gandhi. Both these brothers were prime ministers in Porbandar, one after the other. Kaba Gandhi was my father. He was a member of the Rajasthani court. It is now extinct, and in those days it was a very influential body for settling disputes between the chiefs and their fellow clansmen. He was for some time Prime Minister in Rajkot and then in Vankaner. He was a pensioner of the Rajkot state when he died. Kaba Gandhi married four times in succession, having lost his wife each time by death. He had two daughters by his first and second marriages. His last wife, Putlibai, bore him a daughter and three sons, one being the youngest. My father was a lover of his clan, truthful, brave, and generous, but short tempered. To a great extent, he might have been given to carnal pleasures, for he married for the fourth time when he was over 40, but he was incorruptible. He earned and had earned a name for the strict impartiality in his family as well as outside. His loyalty to the state was well known, and as assistant for political agent spoke insultingly at the Rajkot Sahib, his chief, and he stood up to the insult. The agent was angry and asked Kaba Gandhi to apologize. This he refused to do and was therefore kept under detention for a few hours. But when the agent saw that Kaba Gandhi was adamant, he ordered them to be released. My father never had any ambition to accumulate riches and left us very little property. He had no education save that of experience. At best, he might be said to have read up to the fifth Gujarati standard. Of history and geography, he was innocent, but his rich experience of practical affairs stood him in good stead in the solution of the most intricate questions and in managing hundreds of men. Of religious training he had very little, but he had that kind of religious culture which frequent visits to temples and listening to religious discourses make available to many Hindus. In his last days, he began reading the Gita at the instance of a learned Brahman friend of the family, and he used to repeat loud some verses every day at the time of worship. The outstanding impression my mother has left in my memory is that of saintliness. She was deeply religious. She would not think of taking her meals without her daily prayers. Going in Haveli, the Vaishnava temple, was one of her daily duties. As far as my memory can go back, I do not remember her having ever missed the Chaturmas. She would take the hardest vows and keep them without flinching. Illness was no excuse for relaxing them. I can call her once falling ill when she was observing the Chandrayana vow, but the illness was not allowed to interrupt the observance. To keep 2 to 3 or consecutive fasts was nothing to her. Living on one meal a day during Chaturmas was a habit with her, but content with that, she fasted every alternate day during the Chaturmas. During another Chaturmas, she vowed not to have found without saving the sun. Her wee children on those days would stand, staring at the sky, waiting to announce the appearance of the sun to our mother. Everyone knows that at the height of the rainy season, The sun does not condescend to show his face, and I remember days when, at his sudden appearances, we would rush and announce it to her. She would run out to see with her own eyes, but by that time the fugitive sun would be gone, thus depriving her of her meal. That does not matter, she would say cheerfully. God did not want me to eat today. And then she would return to her round of duties.